Welcome everyone. It's really great to have you all joining us this morning for this session on Aspirational Awards. I'm Carol Patrick. I'm the Director of Evidence and Influencing for the Young People's Programme here at the Trust. And we're really excited to be able to share with you some of our learning so far on individual grants and co-production with young people with care experience. Here at the Trust, we always work really hard to try and put young people at the heart of everything that we do. We ask ourselves, would this be good enough for a young person in my family? A son or daughter, a niece, a nephew, a grandchild? We try to keep young people in our hearts as well as in our minds. And we believe that directly investing in young people with care experience through individual grants and co-production is one important element of working towards transformational change. Our work on Aspirational Awards and our work with our advisory group on co-production are clear expressions of our values. And it's really encouraging to know that these topics are interesting and engaging for you too. So thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us this morning. Hopefully today is the start of a conversation about how we can work together and build on the work of co-production and individual grants for young people with care experience. Just before we start, I'll just quickly run through the agenda so that we all know what we're expecting. We've got 2 hours together, and for the first hour or so, you'll be hearing from Trust staff, from a member of our advisory group, and also from young people who have received Aspirational Awards. We do want to hear from you as well though, so please do use the chat function to log your questions as you're listening to the speakers, and also to share any comments that you would like. Once we've had the presentations, then we'll have about 15 minutes for a question and answer session, and I'll hopefully pick up on as many of your questions as possible. That'll take us up to around about 11:40, by which time I think we'll all be needing a coffee. So we'll have a quick 10-minute break. And then when we reconvene, we'll go straight into breakout rooms. And this is really our opportunity to hear from you. So we're really keen to get your reactions, to hear your responses to what you've heard, but also your thoughts about what it might mean for you and for your work in your organisations. At the very end, we'll come back just for a brief plenary of around 10 minutes, and we'll get some feedback from you. And we'll finish no later than 12:30. So I'd like to get started now. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Catriona Kelly. Catriona is Senior Evidence and Influencing Officer at the Trust, and she's been closely involved with Aspirational Awards from the very beginning. And she also plays a key role working alongside our advisory group. Catriona, over to you.
Thank you very much, Carol. And hello to everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. So I've got about 15 minutes to talk you through the Trust's experience of administering individual funding awards. I'm going to start by talking a wee bit about the background and why the Trust has chosen to invest in them. I'll then talk about Aspirational Awards specifically and what we funded through this, what the impact has been, and what the Trust has learned from this experience. So why have we invested in individual funding awards? As you may know, the Trust is passionate about putting young people with care experience at the heart of our work. And investing directly in young people through individual funding awards is one aspect of the Trust approach to this. Our journey with individual funding awards began way back in 2014, when we delivered a pilot programme over a 3-month period in Glasgow City and the Highlands. During this pilot, we offered up to £500 for any young person aged 14 to 26 with experience of being in care. The pilot was designed to be highly flexible, and young people could apply for funding for anything which they felt would improve their immediate circumstances or support their personal development. Sorry, voice is going. These grants were hugely successful, and the impact was impressive. Here on this slide is some of the feedback we received after running the grant scheme. Hopefully you can all see the slide okay. It's really there just to illustrate the feedback we had from young people who received a grant during the pilot, and to highlight the key areas that they felt had improved through spending their award. The 4 areas where the highest percentage of young people reported change, so over 30% for each of these, were that young people felt they had more confidence, that they were more active, that they had a greater range of skills, and that they were more motivated. Conducting this pilot allowed us to hear directly from young people just how powerful a small financial intervention can be when they can make their own choices about what will make the most difference to them and subsequently control the budget to make this happen. The pilot also highlighted a real gap in support for young people aged 21 to 26, particularly in terms of helping them to think about their longer-term future. So we used all of this learning to start developing what eventually became known as Aspirational Awards, which we launched in November 2016. At this point, I just want to really quickly highlight the fundamental role of the Trust Advisory Group in developing Aspirational Awards. For those of you who aren't familiar with the advisory group, it's made up of volunteers who advise the Trust, and they work on specific projects and initiatives with us. With the Trust support, the group led the development of Aspirational Awards, and they continue to be key to its ongoing success. I'm not going to go into detail about what this development process looked like, as we are really lucky to have Lydia, who is a member of the group, here with us today, and she's going to touch on this in her presentation. So, back to what Aspirational Awards actually are. Fortunately for all of us, back in 2016, some of our advisory group made a short film to help introduce the scheme to young people, which we will hopefully be able to show now.
So, you're interested in applying for the Aspirational Awards? Well, we're here to help you through the application process. You may be wondering what Aspirational Awards actually are. We aim to support you as care-experienced young people to think big about your future and to apply for funding which will support you in your personal development and allow you to reach your full potential. This could include developing new skills, new languages to allow you to work or volunteer abroad, or even building on skills and interests you already have in areas such as construction, arts, drama, dance, or music. It could even be setting up your own business. It might be finishing school to help you get into the uni course that you're interested in, or gaining a qualification to help you get the job you've always wanted. These are just examples though. We want to hear what you're interested in and what you're really passionate about.
Aspiration is really hard to define as it is unique for everyone, and what might be aspirational for you might not be aspirational for others. However, for this funding, we will consider it to be something that will have a long-term benefit on your life and help you to reach your full potential. If you're aged between the ages of 21 and 26 and have 3 months previous care experience, that could be foster care, residential, or even looked after by a guardian, then you will be eligible to apply. Online through the Life Changes Trust website, by writing in post, or through video link. The first step though is to email us your idea or call us on 0141 212 9611 and we can have a chat about your ideas.
Hopefully you enjoyed the film. As it shows, the advisory group worked hard to be clear about what we would fund, whilst also keeping it as flexible and open as possible so that applicants could tell us why they believed what they were applying for was aspirational to them. Inevitably, this means that we have funded a whole host of things, showing that young people's aspirations really are very varied. Here are some of the things that we have funded through Aspirational Awards. So, as you can see, there have been 96 successful applicants over 7 rounds. To date, the Trust has awarded over £245,000 directly to young people with care experience across 26 local authorities in Scotland. The average award we have made is just over £2,500, and the lowest award is £300. In terms of what young people have applied for, we've identified 5 main themes of applications, which are represented by the pictures on this slide. So first up, we have entrepreneurial activities. We have received a large and varied number of applications requesting funding to support young people in either starting up a business or to become self-employed. For example, we've supported young people to start up businesses focused on hairdressing, football coaching, landscaping, and others. In terms of self-employment, the majority of these applications have been for equipment or course costs. And whilst a fair number of these have been focused on the construction sector, we've also had other unique requests, such as funding towards a dog grooming course and cost to support a career as a social media influencer. The second picture on the slide represents applications we've had for vocational courses. Again, the range of applications that we've supported under this category is pretty extensive. For example, we've had applications for specialist screenwriting classes, acting courses, courses in Japanese and Korean, and specialist sports coaching courses. So really, really varied. And next up is equipment. In addition to the equipment related to self-employment that I've already mentioned, the Trust has supported applicants to purchase other equipment to help them pursue aspirations related to interests and hobbies. The majority of these awards have actually focused on creative activities. So we've funded applications for specialist software, for musical pursuits, art supplies, photographic and filming equipment. So really, really varied. Higher education has been another application theme. And through Aspirational Awards, we've been able to support young people at different stages of their education journey. So we've supported young people to start new university courses, such as masters, and we've provided funding to help young people with care experience make the most out of their university experience. So this could be through supporting them to undertake international exchanges or get specialist equipment for their course. The last category of applications I want to mention is volunteering. We've provided funding for young people to volunteer abroad, with the applications generally focused on some aspect of either professional or personal development. Today, we've been lucky enough to support young people to volunteer in Africa, USA, Central America, Europe, and Asia. Although that's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour into what we funded, hopefully it's given you a bit of a flavour for the range of applications that we've supported. For us at the Trust, and hopefully you agree, seeing the range and variety of applications really demonstrates the value in providing the space for applicants to tell us what they think would make the difference in their life. So, moving on to what the impact of Aspirational Awards has been. Feedback we have had has been very positive in terms of impact. Here are some of the things young people themselves had to say about how their award benefited them. As you can see from the slide, we've begun to see three main themes of impact. Sense of self. So we've heard from awardees that just the actual process of securing the funding made them feel more positive about their own lives, and it helped them understand their own worth. I think this is demonstrated really nicely by the first quote that we have from a young person who was awarded funding, where they said, "I learned a lot about myself and have become a more reflective person. I have also come to have a more positive view of myself as a result of this process. Gaining the award helped me to feel more worthy of something so amazing, which has had a powerful impact on my life." To us, this shows that although money is one part of the picture, it definitely isn't the whole story. And when talking about the power of individual funding awards, it's important to highlight the positive impact that purely trusting young people to make their own choices and giving them the opportunity to do so can have. Now, as you'd expect, next up is skills development. And this has been another area of impact that we've seen. And we've had some really positive feedback from applicants on how their award helped them to develop their skills, both in terms of professional development and softer skills more related to personal development. And in the quote here, one young person has even talked about how their new skills will help them in their future. So they said, "It gave me a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to better myself, help others, and see another part of the world. It has made me more employable, which will massively benefit me in the long term." The last area of impact I just want to quickly touch on is where we have heard from young people that receiving an aspirational award has influenced the way they approach and view their future. So this is where we've kind of said taking control. For example, one awardee said, "The award has allowed me not only to invest in equipment needed, but has allowed me to invest in my future and push myself to achieve greater things." We've been really pleased to get this feedback from awardees, as it's beginning to show that what is a relatively small amount of funding can, for some people, create this ripple effect in their life. It could allow them to imagine a different future for themselves or carry the positive impact into other areas of their life. It's been really encouraging for us at the Trust to get this feedback, and we're looking forward to gathering more evidence over the next year. As we've continued over the last few years with our Aspirational Awards, we've learned a lot about what works best for young people and what makes for a successful award scheme. Although our approach continues to evolve, and I think it always will, I just want to highlight some of the key learning that we've had to date. So first up is the importance of flexibility. We've learned that being flexible is fundamental if we are to genuinely support young people. Examples of this are where we've been flexible with awardees who have not been able to spend their award within a year, or when we have had requests from awardees to change the overall focus of their award. The Trust has always encouraged applicants to stay in touch with us and tell us if things are not going to plan. And as these grants are for individuals, we try to take a personalised approach to the support we give and take each one on a case-by-case basis. Next up is risk. And in the development of Aspirational Awards, the Trust and our advisory group had many, many discussions about risk and what level of risk we were collectively comfortable with taking. And as I said, as trust and belief in young people with care experience is absolutely fundamental to the ethos of Aspirational Awards, it was really, really important that the processes we put in place reinforce this. And although it would have been tempting to maintain more control, for example, by using vouchers or purchasing items directly for young people, this ultimately wouldn't have fit with our values, nor what the group envisioned for Aspirational Awards. Therefore, the group and the Trust collectively decided that it was important to acknowledge this risk and mitigate it as much as possible without creating too many barriers which could prevent people from applying. To do this, we use proportionate conditions of funding when awards are made, such as confirmation of an applicant's place on a course, which either place restrictions on how the funding is to be used, or to ensure certain factors are in place before we release the funding. Next up on the list of what we've learned is the importance of the assessment process. Members of the advisory group assess all the applications we receive, and when they were developing Aspirational Awards, the group spent a lot of time discussing how the application should be assessed to ensure the process was robust but efficient. Ultimately, they decided that each application should be assessed by 3 different group members, with everyone coming together at an assessment panel to make the final funding decisions. Although this process is definitely more time-consuming than the traditional approach of one application being assessed by one assessor, it is also a really valuable part of the process. The assessment panel provides space for discussion, challenge, questions, which really helps the assessors to make the best funding decisions possible with the available budget. The last area of learning I just want to quickly touch on is where the Trust now allocates its resources to administer Aspirational Awards in the most efficient way. As you can see, there are 3 such areas of resources that are very closely linked together. So first up is grant management, where dedicated staff with funding management and finance experience administer the awards, and they really share their knowledge and skills with the Trust advisory group. This is definitely where the largest amount of resources dedicated during funding rounds, and includes work such as responding to inquiries, issuing award letters, liaising with successful applicants, and of course, making payments. This bit about liaising with successful applicants and taking a person-centered and responsive approach to this is fundamental to sticking to the values behind Aspirational Awards. And although it can be the most time-consuming aspect, it's definitely worth it. The secondary resource that the Trust puts into Aspirational Awards is focused on co-production, where staff facilitate the work of our advisory group to ensure that they remain partners in Aspirational Awards and are supported in their role. And now that Aspirational Awards is fairly established, our co-production work with the group is mainly focused on kind of reflecting, refining, and tweaking the processes that are around Aspirational Awards. And finally, we have our assessors. So as I said, our advisory group members assess all of the applications that we receive, and they're paid to take on the assessment role. The Trust, Trust highly values the skills and insights of our assessors. And the expertise they bring is unique, and it's by far the kind of magic ingredient for Aspirational Awards. So I'm going to finish up there, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an introduction to the Trust experience of individual funding awards. And if you've got any questions, we'll be about in the Q&A, and I'll pass back to Carol.
Thanks, Catriona. It was great to get that introduction to Aspirational Awards. and to hear more about how young people have used the funding, and also to start to get a sense of the impact of the funding on young people. The sheer variety of funding requests, I think, really demonstrates the importance to young people in having access to individual, flexible funding. Personally, I always love to hear about the prospective dog groomers just as much as the young people that are going on to master's courses and other higher education kind of outcomes. I'm now going to hand over to Lydia Banks, who's a member of our advisory group. Lydia's going to talk you through a bit more about the role of the group and its work on aspirational awards. We're really pleased to have Lydia with us this morning to give us the inside track. Lydia, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Carol. I hope everybody can hear me. Good morning. I wonder how many of you are waving or nodding, even though I can't see you, but I thought that would be jocular to ask just for everybody's video off. Guys, I'm just going to give you a wee whistle stop about the advisory group and touch on aspirational awards as well. So the group is made up of volunteers who give their time and advice to the trust and work on specific funding projects and initiative. The group is made up of all volunteers, and we come from a variety of background of care experience. We're working, we're in education, we're parents, we do a lot of volunteer work. So it really is a broad spectrum of expertise and skills and knowledge that make up the advisory group. When we came together and we made the advisory group and aspirational awards, we really took a lot of time to kind of think about what is it we want to do, what is kind of our legacy. And some of these are to overcome barriers for care experienced young people, to challenge stigma. Sometimes there's a preconceived idea of people who have experience of being in care and being in the system. We really felt strongly about increasing kind of options and chances and choices for young people with care experience. We felt that sometimes individuals with care experience didn't have the same chances and choices that those that weren't in care. So we really want to make sure that was one of our aims. And we really wanted to create aspirational kind of ideas and thoughts for young people and really help them achieve transformative change. So something that was going to have a major impact on their lives, whether that was to finish a course, go to university, travel the world, have a dog grooming business. It was just really important for us to kind of make sure that we were kind of creating role models and building the bar of aspirations for care experienced young people. So Aspirational Awards was our first project, and it took about 6 months to sort of develop it. It was a really long process. Here are kind of some of the steps that we took. So back in day dot, when obviously the group came together, we wanted to define what was aspirational. What does that mean? And there was quite a lengthy discussion, within the group about what was aspirational to one person might have been different to another person. And when we designed aspirational awards, we really wanted to take that into account, because it really depends on people's age and stage. Where are they in their life? Where are they in regards to their care journey? How much support have they had in regards to the chances and choices that they want? So kind of when we got through that step of actually aspirational, it's something that has a long-term impact. There's a lot of longevity in that. We then went on about the funding criteria, and what we really want to make sure that there wasn't any barriers to participation here. So just a minimum requirement of 3 months of being in care, and it didn't actually matter what your care experience was, whether it was residential, foster care. It was just really important, for us to make sure that individuals had care experience. So we had to present our proposal to committee after kind of a lot of risk management in regards to, Kat touched on some of it about risk aversion, and actually how were we going to safeguard the trust, safeguard individuals as well, making sure that kind of support systems or support provisions and signposting and sources of support were in place for them. We really want to make sure that we were able to develop and evaluate a plan for the initiative. That was really important for us, just to make sure that actually that we could sustain the funding initiative, developing the community and the promo strategy, you know, we thought of bus stops, pens, hoodies. So, you know, really trying to think of the individuals that we were applying to and what kind of forum they would be on, whether it was Snapchat, Twitter, social media. Developing the application form, something that the whole group felt really, really strongly about was, you know, making sure that you didn't need to write an essay. That was really, really important. But something else that we felt was important was we also didn't want individuals to feel that they had to sell their soul, you know, tell us their sob story of being in care in order to receive the funding. So in regards to the way that we designed it and kind of when we thought about open question and closed questions, we really wanted to make sure that we looked at the future and not their past. So that was really, really important to us when we were designing it. Kat spoke about developing the assessment process and the forum. So, you know, the amount of questions, we didn't want to ask questions just for the sake of it. People could also do this over the phone if they weren't good at literacies or writing or just didn't have IT equipment. Assessing all the applications, that was really important for us because we really wanted to use our lived experience to look at what individuals were applying for so that we could put ourselves in their shoes, because 9 times out of 10 somebody in the group's either thought of that or done that, and it really came back to our values of why the group was made, the co-production. It was just really, really important for us. Making funding decisions. So 3 individuals from the group do assess the applications, and then what we then do is we come to a funding panel, and we then all collectively discuss each application, what we've rated them. And the uniqueness of that process is we are able to change our mind or have a discussion about, do you know what, I never thought of it that way. So maybe somebody had put a note in application because they maybe read it or perceived it in a different way. It's just really, really good for us as a group to kind of learn and reflect on our learning or the way that we've perceived an application. So it's really, really important that, you know, us with the trust do that. I've kind of touched on the process we went through for developing aspirational awards, and now I really want to highlight kind of some of our top tips of co-production and why we feel that this really is one of a process that we believe in and that we value, and it really is the only way to work now that we feel. So why is co-production important? So it's decisions that are led by experience. So all of us have experience of being in care, accessing education, or having experience of the barriers that we receive when trying to access different forums. So it's really, really important that we are fundamental in the catalyst in that production. We really wanted to make it more personalised in regards to when people receive funds, when people are aware of that they've been successful. So, you know, doing phone calls to individuals to successful grants and welcome packs. That was something that we designed and we developed, and we thought that was really important. One of the kind of golden nuggets of our group is because we come from different backgrounds, we come from different areas, we are able to learn from each other. So from when we've maybe had an application that maybe not been successful, we can do signposting and sources of support, or what we'll say is they've only asked for this amount, but actually can we signpost them to that organisation, because after that might be another tool that they could learn from. Or, you know, a buddy system. Oh, we know so-and-so in that organisation. Can we link them up with that? Or do they know about this? It's really, really important that, you know, predominantly most of us have all kind of got our finger in the pie, should they say, in regards to care experience and agencies that are in our area. So we can give that to the trust as well to say, do you know about this funding initiative? Are you aware of this funding grant or this new services coming up? Do you know about that? How can we get that out to the people that we've supported and continue to support? So it's just really important. What works for us? Relationships and trust. The relationship between us and the trust is so important, and Catriona really, really does play such a pivotal part in that. Kat, in her role supporting the advisory group and Aspirational Awards, is paramount, because not only does she support us with any ideas or thought processes that we have, but she is also able to put that back to the trust and help us to facilitate anything that we want to move forward to. But having a worker work with us, but it's also in the organisation, I think is really, really one of the fundamental aspects of the success of the group, because Kat is able to kind of switch hats and roles when needed. Flexibility and commitment. All of us are either working in education, so we all have really, really busy lives, but the flexibility and autonomy of the group in regards to what we can take on, when we can make a meeting. We predominantly meet at weekends, so you have to give up a Saturday every month. And then there is the residentials that we do twice a year. They're a full weekend of really, really hard slog. But the flexibility from the trust in regards to what we do, and also the flexibility within the group, we totally understand if you need to dip out of that, then we could do this, and we'll bring you back up to speed in regards to our Facebook or a chat or a blether. But we're all really, really committed. I think when we started the advisory group, and especially Aspirational Awards, it's our baby. It really has been the thing that's flourished and nourished everything. So we're really, really important, to make sure that there's no pressure for anybody, but when we need to dip in and out, we can. And I think that's really, really important. We challenge and compromise. We feel very passionate. We've got very strong views and opinions, and everybody will kind of have the thing that they feel passionate about, whether it's about homelessness, whether it's about further education, whether it's about housing provision, whether it's about through care and aftercare, or services and designs of services for care experience. But about the relationship that we all have with each other is we truly respect each other. Although we might argue or agree to disagree, shall we say, we truly have a massive amount of respect for each other. And when we are in funding assessments, or we're designing a new funding initiative, we are always able to maybe challenge each other's opinion, but then we're also willing to hear where that's come from. And 9 times out of 10, what happens from that is we learn more, we gain more of an insight, and we've then created an amazing funding initiative along with Life Changes Trust. Last but no means by least, I just want to share with you some of the love, the passion and the pride that myself and the group take in not only in Aspirational Awards, but in the trust itself. I'm just going to read out a couple of reflections from trust members. So sometimes I forget that everything here has been done by us. It was just an idea, and now in less than a year, we have actual awards. And I think that's just kind of, I think we'd all been involved in participation work, but it wasn't true participation, or it was tokenistic participation, whereas this co-production is really, really important. And actually to see that idea in the Edinburgh office over months and months of slog has actually come to fruition, and you're hearing the impact. I think it truly is amazing. And I think that legacy really will go on. So this seems like a residential. On a day's to-do list is marking more of the fantastic Aspirational Awards we received this round. Love reading about care experience young adults, dreams and aspirations. And then we are family. I've got my advisory group with me. And I think that really does just kind of encompass what we are. We are a family. We're not just a group of individuals ticking a box. We are family. So that's me finished, guys. I'm going to pass over to Carol.
Thank you, Lydia. It was so great to just get the perspective of the advisory group in designing and delivering Aspirational Awards. I feel that you spoke quite a lot there about working really hard and slogging away. So I feel I do need to say that it's often the group that are pushing the staff, not the other way around, in terms of the hard work, especially at the residentials. But we really appreciate you being here today, Lydia, and sharing that perspective. And hopefully there will be some questions for you. So now we're going to move on just to hear directly from some young people who've received Aspirational Awards. A few weeks ago, my colleague Mari caught up with Anthony, who talked her through his experience of receiving an award. We filmed that chat, so we're just going to share that short film with you now.
Anthony, can you tell me a wee bit about what your Aspirational Award was for and also why you applied for it?
Yep, so my Aspirational Award was for a track bike, or cost towards getting a track bike, because I used to do athletics. I used to be a 400-metre sprinter.
Okay.
And I competed for Scotland, and I was unfortunately had a foot injury which I had to get surgery for last year.
Right.
And then chatting to the surgeon, they kind of said that it wouldn't really be a good idea to run on the foot, because the thing would just come back. It was basically a joint inflammation, and they had to kind of remove the excess tissue that had formed because of that.
Right.
It's almost like a kind of arthritis-y kind of thing, but it's not like rheumatoid or osteoarthritis, just a kind of different kind of inflammation. So I was like, well, we need to find something that's not going to impact that. So obviously cycling is probably the lowest impact sport you could probably find, apart from swimming, I think, unless you fall off your bike, of course. But so I'd got a road bike, and I was doing bits and bobs, bit of cross training, and I'm obviously not one for coming from the sprinting background on the athletics track. Doing sprint on like the road is a bit different to doing it in the velodrome, and I'd never really kind of thought about velodrome, and we looked into it, and obviously the costs were quite high. So once we found out we could kind of apply for some money to help out, we kind of delved into that and had a wee look.
Yes, tell me a wee bit about how you found out about it then. And
so it was through uni. I was just going into my first year of uni, and I'd been chatting away to the care experience kind of officer, I suppose you could call her, Rachel, and she'd said really good things about you guys, and that potentially it would help with the whole kind of transition of sport. Because it can be a bit more expensive, buying bikes and wheels and all these things, compared to just chucking your trainers on and or your running spikes is maybe like £100 max. You'll probably spend a year on that sort of thing. When you're looking at like track bikes, like the frame I got was 1,400, and that was on sale.
Wow! Right,
just for the actual frame, and then that's quite cheap for a lot of track bikes you get out there. So it was obviously it's a change of world for me, thinking like, oh geez, how am I going to be able to afford this, compared to just kind of going down to your local running track. And I used to get like free access to gyms and stuff in Glasgow, so I had very little cost. And I've gone to this new world where it's almost you're having to pay for everything. You're like, oh no. So it was really good.
That's good
to be able to apply for that and use
good
that
stuff. And so when you heard that you'd been successful, how did that feel for you?
Yeah, I was delighted. I was over the moon. Obviously a weight off the shoulders as well, and I think my adopted mum, she was obviously very happy for that as well, and she thought it was great. They probably would have tried to help out as much as they could, but it obviously takes a bit of stress off everyone, being able to kind of buy all your own equipment. And I was using like a hire bike each time I was going, because I was training anyway. Just on like a hire bike. It was like £3 a session to pay for the hire bike, which is pretty cheap, but they're not great bikes. So you couldn't really do the same, and you were kind of fixed to one gear. You weren't allowed to change the gears on those bikes just for safety. So I was kind of very limited in my training from like kind of September all the way through to until I got my own bike and all my own gears and all these kind of bits and bobs. So
and so is that what you did with the award then? Tell me a wee bit about what you actually did with that funding.
I bought a carbon fibre frame, track bike frame, a Fuji frame, and then it's not like kind of buying I suppose you can buy these bikes fully built, but you're better to kind of buy bits and bobs because you can get the best equipment. It actually works out cheaper. So I bought the frame and like the kind of, they call it like I can't remember the words for it. I'm still very new to the cycling track. Like you're kind of cranking your bottom bracket, like your drivetrain effectively. That all came from the one shop, which was really handy. And they put that together for me because I didn't have a clue what to do.
Do you think that receiving an Aspirational Awards, would you say it's had an impact on you and your life?
Definitely. It's basically made me able to concentrate on my studies a bit more and not have to work as much. I work as a massage therapist at the moment. So I've been doing that for a few years. I work for my mate's business through in kind of Motherwell, Wishaw area. And I would have probably had to take on more time. At the moment, I just work a Thursday, usually a Thursday evening after uni, or in the summer, it's like 2 till 10. I'll work, and I would have probably had to take on a few more hours, which would probably put the training further back. And it's just made it a lot easier to kind of get that first step into the new sport.
It really has been about your aspirations of operating at elite level, hasn't it?
Definitely.
It's really about taking it.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me transition from one sport and really start to push. And it's obviously going to take time. It's not going to be like a overnight sort of thing, but I think I mean, I came the British Champs this year was in January, so effectively it was like my first British Champs for cycling, and I came 10th in the individual sprint and 10th in the it was 11th in the sprint and 10th in the keirin. And I did like a 10.5 for like my flying 200, like which qualifies you for the individual sprint. And my coach at the end of it, he'd said like no one does that, like come like their first year of cycling comes in and just does that. So he's like, it bodes well. He's obviously not wanting to like ego too much and things like that, and obviously you got to keep your feet on the ground. But I was like, oh, good, that's positive. And he's like, obviously says everything you've had's obviously helped, and it's obviously good that you've got all this equipment so we can actually start training properly and things like that as well. It's really good.
That's cool.
Very different, but really good. I really enjoy it. I was just kind of happy that the awards allowed me to actually continue in sport rather than, I mean, I probably would have, if I couldn't do anything, I probably would have helped coach my old athletics group or laid a hand somewhere. But I'm really glad I'm actually able to compete, because that was the part I was probably going to miss the most about not being able to run. I'm just lucky that we've got a velodrome in Glasgow. And obviously not at the moment, but yeah, it's been really good. I've been really happy. And I suppose it's kind of good, bad and good timing kind of mixed up with the two. Obviously it's sad, but then I've also got loads of positives from being able to transition to the sport, and that's like the grant obviously helped that 100% big time. It's been really, really life changing for me.
That's great.
In such a positive way, and it's great.
It's really good to hear. I mean, I think that's what I was going to ask you. You know, do you think your life would be any different now if you hadn't received the award? And you've obviously touched on that a wee bit there with, you might not have been in sport at that
exactly.
competitive.
It's one of these things, if it hadn't, it's effectively made things very easy for me rather than this, which is good. It still means I can, sometimes a bit of a challenge is obviously great because it makes you probably work a bit harder, but having that given to me and allowing me to actually really put all my energy into it straight away was really good, because I was obviously kind of a bit annoyed and was obviously sad that I wouldn't be able to kind of run again. And it's kind of like, well, you need to, okay, what's the next thing we need to focus on then? So it's like, okay, well, I know I'm getting the award, so cool, I can start training like properly, because I was kind of hanging about thinking, I could maybe get back to running and things like that. And it was like just around about the time I think the award was meant to be like announced if I was getting it or not, I'd like gone for like my kind of visit to the surgeon, just see how things were getting on.
Okay. And
that's when he'd kind of said, I don't know if it would be a good idea if you did try and run. Again, just because it would get sore. And I was thinking, it's probably, you don't want to hear that you're kind of you've got to kind of put your sensible head on, I suppose, rather than, it'll be okay. Like I'm quite an optimist, and sometimes it can be overly optimistic, and that's probably a bad thing at times. But once I knew I was getting the award, I was kind of like, well, we know that this is going to be it's going to be a hard path to take, but it's going to be an easier route now because you guys are helping me out so much.
That's great.
So it's definitely changed my life a lot. And I think my mum and dad are happy as well, because they really like track cycling and things like that. They always used to watch it on TV and stuff, so they find it quite interesting. And
they just after free tickets, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I suppose, if I get there, yeah. I know.
That's great. I think the final thing was just to ask, you mentioned a wee bit, about the fact that you're adopted, and do you have any thoughts about the impact of Aspirational Awards just generally on young people with care experience?
Yeah, I think, from my experience, I think through even just in the whole general of the care system, I think my experience has been very positive. I've been quite lucky, I feel, compared to a lot of children or young adults who have been through the care system, and that's just my story. I'm very lucky that I've been, just the position I am in. I know a lot of people can maybe have a bit more of a hard time, and I think awards like this can definitely show people that there is still support there for like people who have been through the care system, or never. I think a lot of people in care, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they maybe don't see themselves as maybe being able to be high achievers, or they always feel like they've maybe got something kind of pulling them back. But something like this can definitely allow people that feel like that to maybe feel like, hang on a minute, if these people are willing to help me out and maybe help me do something that will be life changing, you think, well, what else can I get that's out there, or what else can I maybe put my mindset to, to be able to achieve what I want to achieve. So this has obviously helped me out big time. But if you're thinking about it as well, it's obviously a really positive thing that I think a lot of people will benefit from as well. And obviously it's people, it won't just be sport and things like that. It could just be just general things they need to do in their life, or if they're needing help with and things like that. So it's obviously it's great that it's not just, for me, it's obviously very sport specific for me, but I don't know what other people may apply for.
Yeah, all sorts of things.
Yeah, which is great. It's such a kind of broad range. So I think, definitely. I think more people, as I said, I didn't really know about it until I went to uni. But I think it's definitely scope for, if you can get like the word out more, I think more people would probably, I mean, you probably get loads of applications anyway, but I think you'd probably get even more if more people knew about it as well. So I think it's definitely something to kind of keep growing.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's great. No, I think that's a really good point, trying to get the message out to more people, and it can be really for anything that you aspire to do in your life. And actually the Trust does this with our own advisors, actually developing this initiative, because we believe that everyone can kind of reach their full potential when they have that sort of support. So that's great. Excellent. No, thanks very much. That was brilliant, Anthony. Really good to chat through everything with you.
I hope you enjoyed that film. We're really grateful to Anthony for taking the time to chat to Mari and give us a bit of an inside view of his experience of receiving an Aspirational Award. Now, we'd also hoped to have Alicia with us this morning. She was planning to join us for the webinar, but unfortunately she's not been able to make it. But she has asked that we do share her personal story of her experience of receiving an Aspirational Award. So Mari is just going to read that for us now. Thanks, Mari.
No problem. I'll read this in Alicia's voice. She's obviously much younger and cooler than I am, so you just have to visualise Alicia when you're hearing this. So I heard about the Aspirational Awards through my third sector network and being part of the care community. I had a lot of friends that had applied and done incredible things with it. I was always told to apply, but I never knew what I would need it for. So I laughed it off and would say, oh, you never know, maybe one day. Travelling's been a huge love of mine since I was really small. The entirety of the world has always fascinated me. I would look at volunteering opportunities at Camp America style projects all the time. They were just so far out of my price range and seemed so far away from what I was capable of. Eventually, I found a project that was titled Music and Art Educator, which was in Cambodia. As I read further through the description, it seemed like the perfect thing for me to do. I would be able to combine my loves of music, working with people, and travelling. But the price range, yet again, was really expensive. I applied to the Aspirational Awards with very little hope that I was going to be successful. After finding out that my application had been successful, I think my initial reactions were complete and utter joy, combined with the most gut-wrenching fear. I was going to be stepping so far out of my comfort zone. But consequently, I'd been working on a project that was actually perfect for me. It was maybe fear of the unknown or fear of taking a risk by applying for the award and not ending badly. Either way, the fear was managed by how excited I was and ultimately how proud I was. During my time in Cambodia, I was living in Siem Reap and volunteered at a school called Anjali House. The school functions as a day school that focuses on English and creative art education, but it also runs as a family support service for the families of the students that attend there. And their staff team includes a resident social worker. All of the children and young people that attend Anjali House are considered severely deprived, and many of the families cannot afford electricity to cook meals or to wash their children, all of which Anjali House can provide for them. My role there was to support the children to express themselves through music making. During my time, I taught the children about various aspects of music, like rhythm, melody, and sight reading. This was something that they had never been exposed to before. I also visited a lot of places during my time there, such as Floating Village, an entire village that's built on stilts to manage the colossal amounts of water that rise during the monsoon season. Many Buddhist temples, Fair, the Cambodian circus that is funded by an arts education organisation to allow young people the chance to get employment through participating. Many jungles and the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen. I also got to spend a lot of time with the owner of the volunteering organisation that I was with and got to be a part of his family during my time there. It seems quite a cliche, but the experience was life-changing. It had a huge impact on me. Many believe and often quote that travelling can help you find yourself. I didn't find myself when I was living in Cambodia. I created new parts of myself and built on the things that were already there. It was the benefit of new experiences, the life stories that I heard from those who had lived in Cambodia through the Khmer Rouge, immersing myself in a culture that is built on love and family, the power that music can have on the mass majority of people, the impact of smiling, the impact of gratefulness. It was the awareness of knowing that I am living and breathing part of this world. Perhaps that sounds strange. I've spent so much of my life surviving and not really understanding what it meant to have a life of my own. I am in control of my life. I do not have to succumb to the trauma that I lived through and care from those that were supposed to love me. Those things will affect me for the rest of my life, but I am in control of my life now, and I have the opportunity and the gift of being alive. I found a new love and appreciation for myself when I conquered every single fear that I had with the mantra of, you've gotten through much worse than this, and you'll get through this too, even when I convinced myself that I couldn't. One of the most powerful moments for me was trekking through an uphill jungle with a 20-kilogram bag on my back after being on a coach for 15 hours from Siem Reap to the Cambodian islands. I was by myself. I fell so many times and bruised and cut the majority of my legs, but I kept telling myself that it would be okay. My mantra, I had gotten through much worse and I'd get through this too. I finally realised I was at the peak and it would be downhill from here. As soon as I got to the other side of the island and felt my toes in the sand, it reaffirmed to me that my mantra worked. I was okay. I lay in a hammock on the secluded beach whilst the sun was setting, realising that I had essentially just lived a metaphor. The sun really is brighter on the other side. I laughed at myself. I was creating the mindset, appreciation and love for myself that I'd continued to neglect. I was learning to forgive myself, to be kind to myself and never doubt my capabilities. There were lots of moments like this whilst I was away, particularly when I almost died at sea on a paddle boat during an unexpected storm. It might have been considered a near-death experience. I've had a lot of those during my life, but I was actually happy because regardless of the outcome, I didn't actually want to die. I wanted to live, and that was worth the entire world to me. Spoiler alert, I did live. Since I've been home, I've continued to take risks. I've continued to tell myself that I'll be okay during my life. I've realised that my recovery from trauma is not linear. It will fluctuate as much as the sea waves, but I am alive, and that is so exciting. I've been kinder to those that I crossed paths with. I'm grateful for everyone that decides to spend this time of their life with me. For all the times that I have neglected my own mind and body because I didn't believe I deserved wellness. I am now gentle with my inner and outer being, understanding that I've gotten myself through everything and I will continue to be with myself for the rest of my life. I don't know if I would have had that realisation so soon if I wasn't given the chance to go to Cambodia through the Aspirational Awards. It has afforded me love, respect and gratitude for myself and the world. And Alicia actually wrote a blog about her experiences in Cambodia, so if you'd like to read more, you can access it through the link that we've provided in the briefing too. Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you for reading that story, and our sincere thanks to Alicia for sharing it with us. She's a beautiful writer, as I'm sure you'll all agree, and a real insight into just how life-changing an experience that was for her travelling to Cambodia and the ongoing impact that's having on our life. So we're now moving to the question and answer section. I think we've probably got around about 10 minutes for this, and we have got a couple of questions sitting, but if you would like to ask a question, please do use the chat function and we'll pick those up as we go. So if I could just invite Lydia to join us back, put our camera back on, we'll have our panel. That's perfect. Okay. So we've got a question coming here. Okay, so as a parent, a citizen of Scotland and an older person, exclamation mark, I think the most important I think the most important things we can give all our children is hope and aspiration. that the world could be better starting from yourself. So the question is, how can we make this more the experience of more young people with care experience? Lydia, do you want to start?
Yeah. I really feel that putting young people in the driving seat of their own lives is really fundamentally one of the biggest ways that we could do that, and it's listening to our children. I think, obviously the independent care review and the recommendations from that, I really think that will catapult that. But I think within the trust, something that we feel really, really strongly about is involving care experienced young people. Obviously there is the other side to the trust of the dementia programme, and it's really including the individuals that you're working with in everything that you do, and really that co-production methodology. I think if that should really be the way forward now, and that's the only way. And I think that's why the advisory group, Aspirational Awards, we've seen how putting individuals in the driving seat, in the design, the delivery, the evaluation, and the real focus on that, and the kind of the autonomy and the really good practice and information and outcomes that can really produce. Something that I constantly say in the group is, even how the group of individuals that we have in the group, I am the oldest, I'm the granny of the group. That's what kind of my motto. Kat's the mum, she's younger than me, but she's got that motherly, I'm the granny, I'm the one that gets everybody in trouble. And I was saying it's really, really inspiring to hear, even although I'm out the care system, hearing how much services and organisation and policy and legislation has come forward, even in regards to participation. One of the reasons I joined the group was I'd come out of care, I'd had the experiences that I'd had, but I really wanted to mitigate kind of some of the experiences that I'd have, and to really be a voice, a force, and a kind of role model to say, we can go through that, but actually we have chances and choices. And that was one of the reasons that I got involved in the trust, was for somebody my age, there wasn't really a lot of vehicles in order to do that. And I think what we have created, I think the ethos, the value, the legacy, the advisory group, the aspirational awards, I think hearing the impact and the stories from awardees is amazing. And I think whether that's £5,000, £500, but giving individuals a reason, a voice, and the power that they deserve really, really does have a major impact. And I think that really is the foundation that we need to be laying for children, not just care experienced children, but any child in Scotland. I don't know if that's answered your question. I don't know if you want to touch on anything.
Thanks, Lydia. And a really important point there, I think, about the role of people with care experience themselves and showing what is possible and what can be achieved. Katrina, there's a bit in your report also about the role that supportive adults can play in young people's lives in terms of, supporting that sense of aspiration. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we've kind of found is that if professionals or workers have kind of seen the success of, or know somebody who's applied for aspirational awards and has been successful, that we get much more referrals through them. But I think what I would say about that is just that it's really easy to kind of limit young people to what you think that they should do or what's available at that point of time, in time. But I think through aspirational awards, what we're really seeing is that the range and variety of what young people's hopes and aspirations are is just so vast that to try and limit it is just, we don't want to be going down that road. So if we can create more opportunities that are like or similar to aspirational awards, that are open enough that young people can really come to us and tell us what their hopes and aspirations are. I think for me, that's the really important bit, is just to keep it as flexible as we can.
Yeah. Carol, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I just had an epiphany there. I know, it's a rarity. I think something else that I do think is really, really important, it's something that, kind of we get asked quite a lot as part of the group is, why do you do what you do? And I think what's really, really important about having kind of a body or a government body or an organisation that you're supported with is for individuals. So within, the advisory group, for us, although, we give our time because we want to make a change, one of the fundamental things about Life Changes Trust is in regards to them sort of increasing and empowering our opportunities and chances and choices. I think they really do build our capacity. There's a lot of personal development opportunities, whether it's about getting into other organisations, training, personal development. I think that's really, really important. I think, it's something that I see a lot, or I have seen a lot of in other organisations, is care experience young people have to sell their soul. They have to tell the sob story. And I've been part of the trust for coming up for 4 years now. I just know everybody as Natasha, as Claire, as Simone, as Saffron, and I'm Lydia. I don't know their care experience. They are there for the same reason as me. And that has never kind of been something that we've had to do, because we want to make a change. We are there for the collective to make a change, to empower each other. But I think the trust, the opportunities, the development, whether it's personal speaking, whether it's going on a course, whether it's, using your own networks to kind of signpost us into volunteering opportunities or increase our capacity for job opportunities. And I think that respect from the trust that you have for us, I think that is really, really unique. And, if you see that it's time for somebody to move on to another positive destination or an opportunity to leave, I don't think kind of you hold them back. I think you're really, really good at empowering the individuals that you've got. And I think the chances and opportunities that you create is really, really important. And I think that's really important. So if you are supporting care experience young people, they shouldn't be there as your puppets. You should want them to aspire and to move on. And I think that's really, really important as well. But that's me.
Thanks, Lydia. That's great. So we've got a couple of practical questions now. So the first one is about the age range. So a question about, has it ever been considered to go above 26, just recognising kind of different ages and stages for young people care experience. And then another question about the geographical reach. So Katrina, you might want to start with this one. It's a question about, you noted in your presentation, there's 26 local authority areas that we've had applications from. So just do we have any sense as to why we've not received applications from the other areas? And the questioner knows that there's likely to be a number of different reasons for that, but just interested in our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think like you've rightly said, there's probably a whole number of reasons. We have tried really hard to reach out to all local authorities. But like I said before, what we have found is that where workers or professionals that have either encouraged people to apply, or they know young people that have applied and they've seen that they've been successful, what we've been finding is that they will continue to keep an eye on when the next round is. So actually, I think there's a bit in there about, okay, I've seen that it's successful. I've seen that somebody's gone through the effort of applying and that they've received the money. So actually, I'm going to encourage more people to do this. So I think there is something in there about that. And the other thing I will say is that what we have found, and kind of talking about this more recently, is that the name Aspirational Awards means different things to different people. So I think that has maybe been a wee bit of a barrier for people thinking that they're eligible, or again, for professionals or workers referring young people to us. So I think, there's lots of reasons that it could be, but I suppose, they were the top two that I would pick at the moment. But
thanks, Katrina. Okay. And Lydia, would you like to pick up on the age range point? I know this is something that the group have discussed a lot and also are actually continuing to discuss.
So the reason that we chose originally 21 to 26 was what we found was in regards to statutory services, predominantly, that went up to 89 in 2021. And what we found through research and obviously individual grants that the trust had piloted, that the age range of 21 to 26 was kind of the gap in provision for individuals to be able to access services and opportunities. And that was, when we discussed kind of the stigma and the barriers, that was one of the reasons that we went up. And obviously with legislation in regards to continuing care and through care, 26 was the age that we went up to. We recently changed our age range for the conference and research grants. So when we designed and discussed that funding initiative, we went up to 30, I believe. I might be wrong, but I'm sure it was 30. Right. Thanks, Carol. And one of the reasons, and you know, for whenever we're coming up with a new funding initiative, there is great depths of conversation and discussion. And what we said was, through feedback of other organisations and individuals in the group, was in regards to further education and, you know, the mass data that we got through Aspirational Awards, individuals maybe going on to further education were actually older than 26. So that was actually why we went forward for conference and research to go up to 30. We have recently just had a meeting regarding where do we go forward with Aspirational Awards. Sorry, beg your pardon. Oh, all this talking.
You're fine.
And we had a meeting to discuss Aspirational Awards, the terminology of that, you know, obviously in regards to the Trust decision to close the year early, in regards to our funding initiative and, you know, our priorities, and really looking at the information that we got from the Keep Well Fund. Where are we going to go forward for that? So, and you know, we might look at the age range again for that. We might increase that. We might keep it the same. We might lower it. What we do is we constantly review. So 9 times out of 10 at a funder run, we'll go to Kat, we'll go to Emma, we'll go to Lindsay. How many over 26 did we get? How much below? How many under 21? Because in our funding criteria, we'll have the ineligible. I can't say a word. And so we always kind of gauge that. So, you know, if Kat or Lindsay or Emma had said, guys, we got 15 under below the 21, we would then go as a group, right, what are we doing? How are we going to work that? Yeah. And really, that's another reason why signposting and sources of support, we feel really, really strongly about, to make sure that if there's a funding opportunity that an individual can access, then we signpost that to that. And one of the reasons that we come together and we have the funding criteria that we have is so we don't fund, say, 10, 15, 20 or 100 grand of services and provisions that the local authority should be doing, because really what we want to do is to make sure that the fund is going to individuals where no one else would be able to fund that. And that was why we were quite clear in that. I hope that's answered that.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, I think you've given people quite an insight into the fact that it's very much an ongoing process in terms of looking at eligibility criteria. And as with everything, it's always quite difficult to make these decisions about where you draw the line, but certainly we're very alert to that. Well, thanks everyone for taking part in the breakout sessions. We'll just get some quick feedback points now. I can start with Catriona, please.
Yeah, of course. So the 2 points that I'm going to just raise is that in terms of apprehension around kind of funding individual funding awards or working in a co-production way, we thought that the group thought that risk was really the big thing for both of those. So we talked a lot about that. The second thing we talked about, it was in terms of encouraging others to work in this way, so to kind of put money into individual funding awards. And the group were just saying that it's so important to capture evidence, particularly from young people, but also kind of to break down this bit about risk is how can we communicate when things maybe haven't gone to plan? And yeah, obviously that's kind of smaller numbers, but yeah, that might be quite a nice message for people to know, just so that they can understand a bit more about that risk. That's it.
Thanks, Catriona. That's a really interesting point, actually. Colleen, could we have some feedback points from your group, please?
Yep, so the two main feedback points from us is our discussions really centred around how fundamental relationships and trust is, and kind of shifting that relationship between funders and beneficiaries, and having those bloodlines of it doesn't really matter of people's position and who has lived experience and who does it. It's about coming together towards a common goal and having that kind of equitable position between everybody, and also keeping the good stuff that we've learned from COVID. There was kind of reflections on how funders have kind of changed their processes and moved, and how we can retain that as we move forward, which was really interesting to hear. And also, how do we make sure that all voices are heard? And it's not just those young people who have the most capacity that are able to contribute and be involved in those processes. And I really like the quote that we had of asking ourselves of how hard are we reaching out instead of defining people as hard to reach. So I'll kind of leave on that note.
Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, and really interesting that reflection on the current time that we're living in and the impact that that's having on people's practice already. Emma, could we have some points from your group, please?
Yep, we can echo Colleen's last point there, just about accessibility and how hard are we working to reach people who have left care a few years ago, who are not involved with statutory services anymore. What are we doing to reach them, and are we doing enough? I think came through. There was also, again, echoing Catriona's point, a discussion around, as we move into the legacy phase, how do we best share our approach to risk with other organisations? How do we best influence them and show them how we get into a space where we feel we can take those risks? And then the flip side of that, are we fully understanding the structures that other organisations are working within and what makes it difficult for them to make that leap? And then finally, there was just a recognition that work like this couldn't happen without the organisational culture being in the right place, the organisation having the right mindset, and being brave enough to hand the responsibility over to the advisory group, to give them that power and for it to be authentic, and also to make sure that the people charged with working in that relational co-production way, making sure that they have the right support as well, in order to do their job as best as they can. So yeah, a lot about organisational culture.
Thanks, Emma. And it seems like across the groups there's been some themes emerging there around reaching out, that strong point about how do we make sure that it is as fully accessible as possible, and also that discussion about risk, which is so linked, I think, then to the point about culture and how people are enabled to work in a different kind of way. Okay, Lindsay, could we have some points from your group, please?
Yep, I mean, we spoke about all the themes, but the co-production element, I think it was a case of, even if you're doing co-production and you're doing it well, always thinking about how can we do it better and how can we make sure that there's not engagement fatigue from the young people that are the beneficiaries that you're working with that over-engagement, and almost thinking about how can we broaden that engagement to speak to other young people and not just the same. A little bit as well about possible mentoring or support from people who've got an advisory group or have done co-production on others that are trying to set up to do it, just to take some learning from that. And again, how can we do better with that? And in particular with looking at co-production going forward in the current circumstances, what can that look like on a digital platform to make sure that we're utilising all kind of methods that are available to us that are actually suitable for young people? Are they equipped to do co-production on that digital scale? Do they have the skills and things for that as well? Because we know that the face-to-face isn't necessarily going to come along quite quickly. The other thing we spoke about that was quite important was just that individual support to young people, and what does that look like, and discussing about how that has to be quite responsive and quite quick to young people because their needs are ever changing. So we need to make sure that we capture that and almost not have too many processes and things in place to make sure that you can respond to that individual need as quickly as possible, but in an appropriate way. And overall, just excited about what individual grants can offer young people and how it can really empower them, and how it should be broadened out to include more people, and hopefully there will be more of it.
Thanks, Lindsay, that's great. Yeah, and I think that idea of co-production being something that's never done, it's something that you're always working on and always looking to improve and find different ways. And obviously the current context is making that very much a reality as we try to find different ways to reach out and to connect. Okay, and then just lastly, can we hear from Mary, please?
Yep, sure. So a lot of the stuff that people have already mentioned around inclusivity, but I think the key points from our group were that the process of co-production itself has a value. Also that the power of the story. So I think people found that hearing from the young people today has been powerful, and that you just let a young person be a young person to tell their own story. So don't package everything up in very restricted outcomes all the time. And finally, a much bigger point, that individual grants that give young people power and control and place trust in their hands are brilliant, but we need that to continue throughout their life with different engagements that they have. So we need the individual grant to have an impact on their life, but not for them to then engage with another statutory service, for example, and not experience that level of power and control over their own life. So to take people, for people to have more take more risk, I suppose, and have more accountability that they're not scared of.
Great, thank you, Mari. Yeah, and there's a real sense for me that that's been quite a rich and broad discussion in the groups and the breakout sessions. And I said earlier today that it's our hope that really this is the start of a beginning of a conversation. There have been quite a few comments about, people saying this needs to be shared more widely. We need to talk more widely and have broader conversations around this, because it could have impact across so many areas of young people's lives. So we heard feedback from one of the groups about the possibility of maybe some kind of mentoring support for people who are keen to develop their practice, either in relation to individual grants or co-production, or perhaps a blend of the two. And that is an offer that we would like to make. We are keen to work with people who would like to do those things. So if that applies to you, please do get in touch with us, either directly as individuals or using the YPCE mailbox that you were hearing from about today's event. And also just to say that you've been hearing quite a bit about the impact. In the time that the Trust has got left, we are planning to do more on this. So we will be making more individual grants. We have increased our budget for that work, and we're working with our advisory group on that at the moment. And we will also be investing in some more evaluation. So if you're keen to hear a bit more about that, or to work alongside us with that in any way, then please do get in touch. So lastly, this has been our first go at a Trust webinar today. So it seems like the majority of people have found the event really useful, good balance of content, and probably most encouragingly that people are looking to take things away from today and think about how that impacts on their own work. So that's brilliant, really appreciate that. So it just remains now for me to say thank you again very much for joining us, for giving us your time this morning, and I hope this is the start of the conversation. Thank you.